Mexico has begun to chart a more assertive course in its foreign policy, signaling its intent to play a larger role in shaping the future of regional and global governance. This new direction was highlighted at the recent BRICS summit, where Juan Ramón de la Fuente, Mexico's Minister of Foreign Affairs, participated as an invited observer. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. His presence marked more than a ceremonial inclusion, it reflected Mexico's deliberate effort to enter conversations that are redefining the balance of power in the 21st century. While Mexico is not a member of BRICS, an alliance originally founded by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa in 2009, but now expanded to include 20 emerging economies, the invitation itself carried weight. It confirmed that Mexico, under the leadership of President Claudia Sheinbaum, is increasingly being recognized as a nation that cannot be ignored in the reshaping of global economic and political structures. At the summit, de la Fuente showcased one of the Sheinbaum administration's cornerstone initiatives, the forthcoming Latin America and Caribbean Economic Well-Being Summit. The stated aim of this summit is ambitious yet rooted in pressing realities, to create a new multilateral framework that upholds the dignity of our peoples, respects our cultures, and ensures that the management of global commons is carried out in a way that benefits all nations equally. These principles echo both the frustrations and aspirations of many developing nations, which for decades have felt sidelined by institutions dominated by wealthier countries. The timing of this initiative is no accident. Mexico finds itself at a geopolitical crossroads. On one hand, it shares deep economic, geographic, and cultural ties with the United States, its largest trading partner and a member of the G7, NATO, and other Western-led institutions. On the other, Mexico is increasingly drawn into the orbit of emerging economies that are building alternative centers of power, exemplified by BRICS. Rather than choosing one path over the other, Sheinbaum's government appears determined to pursue a multi-vector foreign policy, balancing its relationship with Washington while expanding ties with Latin America, Asia, and Africa. This approach mirrors trends in other middle powers, such as Turkey, Indonesia, and South Africa, which are attempting to diversify their alliances in an increasingly multipolar world order. Mexico's proactive diplomacy at the BRICS summit was not confined to speeches and statements of intent. De la Fuente used the occasion to engage in substantive discussions with regional counterparts, particularly Brazil and Uruguay, both of which play pivotal roles in Latin American politics. His meeting with Brazilian Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira was particularly fruitful. The two governments agreed to organize a Brazilian business delegation's visit to Mexico in late August. This mission is expected to cover a wide array of sectors, including pharmaceuticals, tourism, and trade facilitation. By working toward harmonizing pharmaceutical regulations, the two countries hope to remove bureaucratic barriers that have historically slowed cross-border commerce in vital healthcare products. Streamlining visa processes and encouraging tourism were also identified as priorities, reflecting a recognition that stronger people-to-people ties are just as crucial as economic statistics in deepening bilateral relations. This dovetails neatly with Sheinbaum's broader strategy, announced just last week, to prioritize strategic partnerships with Brazilian companies. The emphasis, she explained, should be on collaboration with the private sector rather than outright competition. In her view, joint ventures and cross-national corporate alliances are better suited to addressing regional challenges than protectionist policies that often lead to fragmentation. With Uruguay, the focus was more explicitly regional. De la Fuente's dialogue with Foreign Minister Gerardo Alcom centered on strengthening CELAC, the community of Latin American and Caribbean states, where Uruguay is set to assume the rotating chairmanship. CELAC, which includes all countries of the Americas except the United States and Canada, has long struggled with questions of coherence and institutional capacity. Both Mexico and Uruguay stress the importance of transforming CELAC into a more effective instrument for fostering balanced and sustainable economic cooperation across Latin America. For Mexico, investing in CELAC's future is also a way to amplify Latin America's collective voice in global negotiations, whether on trade, climate change, or digital governance. Even as Mexico deepens its partnerships within Latin America, it is also casting its gaze further afield. India has emerged as a particularly promising partner, especially in the pharmaceutical industry. With healthcare demands growing rapidly and supply chains disrupted by global crises, Mexico has an urgent interest in securing reliable and affordable access to medicines. India, the world's leading producer of generic pharmaceuticals, offers precisely that. Plans are already underway for Indian pharmaceutical representatives to visit Mexico later this year. Discussions are expected to cover not only trade but also investment opportunities, such as building manufacturing plants in Mexico that could serve as regional hubs for distribution across Latin America. For Mexico, this is an opportunity to strengthen its own pharmaceutical and biotechnological sectors, while for India, it opens a new market and logistical base closer to the Americas. De La Fuente's diplomatic calendar surrounding the BRICS summit also included important meetings with regional development leaders. Among them was Sergio Diaz Granados, Executive President of the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, CAF. Their discussion revolved around Plan Mexico, a strategic framework aimed at stimulating growth and development in key regions of the country, with a particular focus on the underdeveloped South-Southeast. This part of Mexico, which includes states such as Chiapas, Oaxaca, and Tabasco, has long lagged behind the industrialized North in terms of infrastructure, economic opportunities, and living standards. By working with CAF, Mexico hopes to channel international development financing into projects that address these structural inequalities, projects such as modernizing transportation networks, expanding renewable energy capacity, and enhancing digital connectivity. The accession of Guatemala to CAF was also on the agenda. For Mexico, Guatemala's membership opens new possibilities for binational development projects. Joint infrastructure, energy, and agricultural initiatives could not only boost regional economic integration but also address root causes of migration, a critical issue for both Mexico and its neighbors. Mexico's presence at the BRICS summit underscores a larger ambition to act as a bridge. This bridging role operates on multiple levels. Geographically, Mexico links North and South America, and culturally it straddles both Latin and global spheres. Diplomatically, it seeks to balance its traditional ties with the United States and the West while expanding partnerships with emerging economies in the global South. By pushing for the Latin America and Caribbean Economic Well-Being Summit, Mexico is attempting to formalize this role. The summit could become a platform where Latin American nations coordinate positions on global challenges such as climate change, digital regulation, and the reform of multilateral institutions. If successful, it would allow Latin America to negotiate from a position of greater unity, reducing the vulnerability that often comes from fragmented approaches. To fully appreciate the significance of these moves, it is useful to recall Mexico's diplomatic history. Traditionally, Mexican foreign policy has been guided by the Estrada Doctrine, which emphasizes non-intervention, respect for sovereignty, and the principle of self-determination. For decades, this doctrine kept Mexico somewhat cautious in its international engagements, especially when compared to other Latin American nations that pursued more activist foreign policies. However, global shifts in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, ranging from the rise of globalization to the challenges of climate change, have increasingly pushed Mexico toward a more active role. Participation in trade agreements like NAFTA, now USMCA, membership in the OECD, and leadership in CELAC have all reflected this gradual evolution. What we are now seeing under Sheinbaum is perhaps the most ambitious version of this evolution yet, a vision of Mexico as not just a participant but a leader in shaping global governance models. The road ahead is complex. If Mexico continues to expand its ties with BRICS nations, questions will inevitably arise about whether it should seek full membership. Such a step would carry both opportunities and risks. On one hand, it could give Mexico access to new financial mechanisms, markets, and political networks. On the other, it could complicate its relationship with the United States, with whom it shares a 2,000-mile border and deeply integrated economy. CELAC, too, faces its challenges. While the bloc has great symbolic value as a counterweight to US and Canadian influence, it has historically struggled to convert rhetoric into action. Mexico and Uruguay's commitment to strengthening CELAC will need to be matched by institutional reforms and concrete projects if the organization is to become more than a talking shop. Finally, Mexico's domestic realities will shape how far it can go internationally. For Sheinbaum, the success of her foreign policy will depend in part on her ability to deliver economic growth, reduce inequality, and strengthen governance at home. Only then can Mexico project the credibility